Welcome to my channel, Becoming Bev. So yesterday I stopped in Fargo, North Dakota. I pulled into my campsite, and as I was driving in, I noticed Jordan a few sites over from me with just a bicycle and a tent. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Earlier that day, someone had given me a cantaloupe, like as a gift. And so I thought I should share my cantaloupe with this guy over with the tent and the bicycle.
I enjoyed it.
So I walked over, told him the story. I'm like, would you like some cantaloupe? And of course he said yes. And we started up a conversation. Just talked briefly. And then I woke up this morning in the van with like 1,000 questions rolling through my mind about you and what you're up to. So thank you for taking the time to meet me again and do this little interview.
Yeah, excited to share what I can.
All right. Jordan is basically bicycling across the United States.
Yeah,
So where did you start?
so it's a pretty well-established trail called the Northern Tier. It starts on the coast in Anacortes, Washington, and zigzags across every state that touches Canada, really, and ends in Bar Harbor, Maine, which is right on the coast. So coast to coast.
How many miles is that?
About 4,300. Given that's just the trail, and then obviously detours off of that.
Okay, that's a long bicycle ride.
It's a longest bike ride I've ever been on. That's for sure.
Did you train for it?
Not at all. I actually finished the bike about a week and a half before I left, and I got in I think 3 training rides, and most of it I didn't get my full set of gear on until I actually left the marina that I started at, and that was the first day of kind of making sure everything worked and getting a
Nice.
full test.
Nice. So did you buy your bike while you were there, like where you started off?
So I was living in Eugene, Oregon, and for probably about 3 months I knew I was going to do this. So right now there's actually a bike shortage in the US. So many people are getting into biking, and I didn't want to have to spend like the $5,000 or a couple $1,000s that a lot of the touring bikes that are specifically designed for this were new, and it took me forever to actually find this bike, and I was getting kind of worried. Somebody had posted a different bike that wasn't a touring bike on Craigslist, and in the comments or in the description, he was like, "Oh, I have a '90s steel frame bike that I'm considering selling, but hadn't posted it at all." And I actually messaged him about that bike, and he was like, "Oh yeah, let's meet up." And wouldn't even shift out of any of the gears, and was completely. It was one that obviously needed all its new work, but I could not find anything that was able to actually carry all the weight that I wanted to put on it.
Got it.
So I actually ended up replacing pretty much all of the components, all the wheels, and only kept the steel frame, the metal forks, and even replaced the pedals.
Got it.
So yeah, it's pretty much a old '90s bike with all of the new bells and whistles, and I was able to actually do that all through a local shop in Eugene that kind of guided me on the work. So they didn't actually put any of the stuff together. It was my way of learning how to work on a bike, because I didn't know anything about bikes before that. Yeah. I struggled. There was a lot of nights of I had 2
What?
hours into putting fenders on or brakes on, where it would have taken somebody that knew what they were doing 10 or 15 minutes. It was part of the process.
Got it. So what was your motivation to even take this on in the first place?
There was kind of some different factors that went into it. I actually had a friend, I would say that I'll give him credit for planting the seed of an idea years ago. He actually did a lot of biking. He went from Denver to Southern California and did a lot. He biked across Europe and just kind of talked it up in a way. But he told me about it years ago, and I had kind of been interested in that way of travel, that minimalistic, just physical, you don't have to worry about an engine breaking down, and you just go at a slower pace and get to see more. So that was kind of planted, and then it was one of those things. I came across the Northern Tier Trail, and I was like, I didn't know if I could actually do it. So I saw it as a challenge and was like, let's see if I can pull this off.
I can totally relate to that.
And then too, it just I'm at a point where I didn't really know what I was doing in life and figured I needed some time to think, and what better way to do that than seeing a bunch of states that I hadn't seen before and doing it on a bike in a somewhat reasonable amount of time, and a lot cheaper than traveling obviously with a vehicle. Well, those were kind of the main motivating factors of just an adventure, really.
Yeah. When you and I talked last night, I mentioned, that I had walked the Camino de Santiago, and a lot of what you're doing reminds me of that. Just taking it a day at a time, not really knowing where you're going to spend the night at, maybe until midday or earlier in the day, and being very minimalistic. Like, you realize how little you really need. Like, everything you need is packed on your bicycle.
Yeah.
And when I did the Camino, everything I needed was in my backpack on my back.
I think it shows how little you can really need to, thrive in a way. Like, I've seen a bunch of parts of the country that most people haven't explored, and I've been able to do that with just really a bike and taking my time and actually enjoying that. Or even a vehicle, you drive by things so fast.
Exactly.
Where, you miss a lot at 50 miles an hour compared to 10 to 15. It's you really get to take in the scenery and being outside. Like, I would say, like going up Washington Pass, there was all these rock walls, and it was a super hot day. So anytime I would pass a rock face, it was just so refreshing because there'd be cool water dripping off of it, and you like fully experience that, or just like, oh wow, I'm so thankful for this rock face. We're driving by it. You're in your AC, and
I get it. I totally get it.
So it's just a different way of experiencing the world we're in.
Do you get sore? Do you get tired?
It's one of those things where I've told people it's like 20 miles is the same as 100. You just do the same thing for longer, and if you get tired, you just adjust your gears to a lower gear and you go a little bit slower. So the fatigue on a bike is completely different. I've ran into 70-year-olds that are biking and they're thriving. Like, one guy actually was 72 or something, and I told him that I was going to this stop that was 105 miles away, and I left him because I was like, oh yeah, I'll see you maybe around this route or in Fargo. I'm gonna take a rest day, and just figuring out I might see him in Fargo, and all of a sudden he shows up that night after a 105-mile ride at the same place I was, and I was like, wow, I'm impressed to see you here. I didn't think I'd see you for a couple days, and I mean he was doing fine. There's definitely harder stretches like Washington. I was not conditioned, and climbing mountains, it was...
Oh, I can't imagine.
My knees were sore. Like, it was just like my body was like, what are you doing to me? Like, this is out of nowhere. So I would say it took probably about a week and a half before I was actually like, oh, okay, my body's getting used to this.
What about just like your rear end? What about just like sitting on that bike seat for all those hours?
That is honestly probably one of the most brutal pieces of this all. There's a lot of friction. I have padded shorts. There's all these like biking products that like, it's pretty much deodorant for your butt, and you got to put that on. That's a must every morning, I will say.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, it is probably, I would say, the hard, and universally, like any biker, like if
I mean, I have my little electric scooter in the van. I'm not even pedaling, and sometimes I'm getting squirmy,
Yeah, and that's where a nice seat does a world of difference, and padded shorts. I was, once again, so naive. I wasn't even going to use padded shorts, didn't even know they existed, and was luckily ran into a biker that was like, you're stupid if you do that. Like, yeah, okay. And he was a retired biker, and he had a bunch of really nice equipment and was like, here you go, have them. So I luckily got those, like, they're $100 more shorts, and it just got given to me. So I was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, very sweet. I'm sure you appreciate them now.
Yeah, I actually owe that man a text to say thank you for saving my ass, literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
How long will it take you to do this journey?
So I don't have a timetable of like I have to get done in this time. So it's pretty loose. I'm usually distracted, so I might might end up off on some different ventures off the trail. But typical is like 2 months,
Okay.
around there. So I'm on track to do it in 2 months or a little bit less. But I obviously have half the country to go, and we'll see what that has in store. Don't even know what roads I'm taking. People are like, "Oh, you're going this way," and I'm like, "Oh, I'll know tomorrow when I look at the at the map of where I'm going." I haven't planned it out. I've been going off the adventure cycling thing where they have all of the all of the camping sites and convenience stores I can need mapped out off the route and their distances.
So is that an app that you use through them or a website?
It's an app. Adventure cycling does a lot. They have routes all over the country. I think there's 3 actual routes that they have well designed that go from different points from coast to coast. But they have a whole catalog of routes that you can download. You pay for them, but a really good organization that's like they do. It's well worth it. You can download them, so if I don't have service, I still have the maps. And
Oh, that's fantastic. I was going to ask you about that.
yeah, because if I had to map out the route, they know all the roads that are paved and not paved. This is something that they've kind of almost perfected over the years. So I'm able to rely on their knowledge instead of spending months and, I mean, some people
Figuring
years.
it out. Yeah. What do you do as far as
That's,
eating?
That's my part-time job right now is actually
Eating?
So I have an entire pannier dedicated just to food. I have luckily not had to worry about hunger on this route, whether it's I've got food on me or I've also had people pull over and offer me food like multiple times and always oblige as food. It's all about taking in calories when
Yeah.
you're putting out this much physical effort.
Approximately how many miles a day are you going?
That also kind of varies wildly. Like out west, there's a lot of mountains and doing mountain passes. So I was doing somewhere between 50 to 90 miles in a day, just depending on what was convenient, the temperatures, because I mean, I've had to bike through like some 100-degree days that were pretty rough. Once I left Glacier and it was into central and eastern Montana, today was my first day out of 10 that was under a 100-mile ride. So I was going 100 or more easily.
Have you hit inclement weather? Like, have you hit like
I mean,
rain or?
I had a fake thunderstorm coming out of Glacier where it was like there was thunder and it rained for probably about 10 minutes. But I was luckily already stopped at a campground and like getting food, and I was just like, oh, I'll just camp here and set up my tent was fine. And then 10 minutes and it passed. So
Okay.
pretty much everywhere has been in a drought. So really the rains, I haven't had to worry about rain at all. The worst is, forest fires everywhere. I've been within 10 miles of a burning forest fire in Montana, and one day in Washington, I actually left a town that ended up having a fire that day start, and they closed the highway that I just had passed through on. So that's been more of the worry rather than inclement weather.
Yeah, the air quality. And I've noticed that too. This week I've been in Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota, and now Minnesota, and I've noticed the haziness, just about everywhere I'm driving.
I'm definitely starting to feel like the last few days have been pretty rough. Like the air quality index on Friday, I think, was 250. So it said very unhealthy. And I'm like, oh, I just biked 100 miles. That was probably not the greatest idea. And now I'm kind of starting to feel that fatigue setting in from just days of riding in smoke where it's been fairly sparse. Like I'll have a day where it's smoky, but then the wind changes and it clears out. So this is actually the first stretch where it's been multiple days in a row with pretty bad air.
How many changes of clothes do you have with you?
I'm a simple man. I went with about 2 actual changes of clothes for biking, and then I've got a swimsuit that is pretty much I wear that in the evening, and one pair of pants and one sweatshirt. So I have pretty much one pannier dedicated to a change of clothes, and that's about it. And I just kind of cycle through these. So you'll see, if you see my tent, there'll definitely be clothes airing out that are usually after the third day. I'm like, okay, I need to switch, and then I go to that. And I've been lucky to find laundry or places to do laundry.
When I did the Camino, I did my laundry basically in the shower, or in a bathroom sink, and I would hang it up to dry overnight, and hopefully it was dry the next morning.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, I had safety pins on my backpack, so I would safety pin it onto the back of my backpack, so I was like a walking clothesline, but literally like 2 changes of clothes.
Yep. I also have a plastic bag that I've done laundry in, actually more so than an actual washer. So
Yeah.
I have a plastic bag that I'll put some soap in, shake it up. The only issue is with the long rides, you get to camp late, so your clothes don't really have a chance to fully dry.
Yeah.
So that's the part where I haven't been using that as much. We're at the start.
You don't want to safety pin them on your back like a little cape as you're bicycling down the road.
I'm already not already. Usually bicyclists, they're in all their spandex and whatnot. I'm already not very air resistant. So
Got it.
I don't need a flag behind me as well.
What are some of the highlights of your trip so far?
Actually biked with the guy that actually just called me was one that I had met on my second day of biking. And then we biked the rest of Washington all the way to Sandpoint, Idaho for probably a week. We biked together.
Okay.
So that was biking with people, that's always better than, it's more enjoyable biking with people than alone. And then after he stopped in Sandpoint, I made it another 2 days and ran into a group of 5 that I biked with for 4 days up to Glacier. And ever since that was also a really fun time. It's always good conversation and interesting people that are adventurers. So I would say those were some unexpected highlights. A lot of Washington, like especially over around the coast. If you're talking landmarks and like you're biking through waterfalls and next to like crystal clear water, and it's like absolutely beautiful. There was one when I was biking Washington Pass, which was like the second day, and it was like the hardest. I was really struggling. Didn't leave early in the morning and got right in the heat of the day, and I ended up finding I could only hear it, but there was a stream that was coming off of the mountains, and I pulled over my bike and ended up taking a nap by a creek that I was actually I drank out of it just like straight because it was right off the mountain.
Right.
So that was just one of those like kind of magical settings that you hear about, like crystal clear water, drinking right from the stream, taking a nap by the cool stream in the shade of the woods.
Yes.
Like that was definitely a highlight and mountains to me were a lot more interesting than getting into the plains.
Oh, I can't imagine. Like I've been driving for days through cornfield. Can't imagine bicycling.
That's where the long days came in. I decided I'm gonna like in Montana. Ever since I left Glacier, I didn't see actual green for like 4 or 5 days. Besides some few trees off in the distance, they're in a really bad drought right now. I ended up going through grasshopper swarms.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Like bugs. Like I know from driving, just like the bugs on the windshield and stuff. So have bugs been an issue?
Specifically Montana, they had a really mild winter and they're in a drought. So the grasshoppers are just thriving right now. So swarms of grasshoppers like to hang out on the blacktop, and when you pass them, they just jump. And there was days where I was in 20-mile-an-hour winds, so they jump and they get caught by the wind and they just fly right at you. So there was a stretch there that was it was one of the most brutal stretches for like a mile where I just hit a massive swarm. Then they were just all lined up on this hot blacktop road in the middle of the day, and I couldn't do anything. I was getting hit like every second by like 10 grasshoppers from every direction. I didn't have sunglasses at that point, so I'm just
Holy
like eyes
moly.
closed, riding and just getting hit. I was like trying to swipe, and then it was just like, wow, this is a lost cause because like there was just that many.
Yeah.
And that was the only time. Well, that was the most brutal time of grasshoppers. But Montana was definitely, I hit a few of those that were more mild. But other than grasshoppers hitting bugs, I mean, you just get hit.
Okay.
And they bounce off. You're going slow enough. You're not smashing them. So
None up your nose or eating any or.
just a couple grasshoppers
Okay.
up the sleeve and crawling in the shirt. Then
Oh,
you gotta like
jeez.
shake them out quick. But other than that,
Do you typically stay in your tent like every night, or do you splurge occasionally and get a hotel, or?
in this long of a trip, a hotel is not really in the budget. I have stuck with camping.
Have you done any boondocking at all, or are you sticking with campsites?
Yes, but mainly campgrounds. I'm doing some boondocking. The thing is with showers, after a long day of biking, nothing is better than a shower and rinsing off just all the grime that you accumulate through riding outside all day. I did some boondocking next to some lakes and creeks where I was just like, oh, that's good enough for a shower.
Yeah.
A couple times, but yeah, it's mainly been campgrounds and then warm showers, which is just a bicycle app that people let you camp at their place. So they allow you to take a shower. So between that and campgrounds, that's made up probably 80% or more of my stays.
What's next? Like when you finish this journey?
That's what I still got a lot of time to figure that out, I guess. Right now, as far as like what's immediately following, I have Amtrak had a U.S. Rail Pass sale that you get 10 segments in 30 days. So that's my plan of how my van and my other stuff is back out on the West Coast. So I got a U.S. Rail Pass, and I will make some pit stops and travel around and take a train back out to the west is the plan.
Okay.
Immediately following this, but
Will you sell your bike once you get to the East Coast?
I haven't decided. There's some bike shipping stuff that you can do that like ship your bike across the country, but it's like $100 or more. I almost feel like I rode it across the country. I need it as like a souvenir at least.
Right?
Like I don't want to just sell it.
That's how I feel about my hiking boots. Every time I strap on my hiking boots, I'm like, we have gone a long way together.
Yeah, I've even said, like I told my family, they're like, oh, do you think you're start doing a lot of touring? I'm like, oh no, this might be retiring. Like, I'll keep the bike hanging on the wall.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, so I feel like I want to keep it as a memento, so I don't think I'll sell it.
I love your adventurous spirit. I love that you just like took this on and went for it, and congratulations, you're like halfway done. Would you mind like showing us how you pack and what gear you have with you?
Yeah, we can take a look. It's pretty random, and I already sent 7 pounds of stuff back because that's what I've realized is a thing you over prepare and under prepare at the same time.
Let's look at your gear.
Let's do it. This is the all-important food bag. So the largest pannier I have, a 35 liter, is pretty much just dedicated to food and extra water and sunscreen. So this is like my most accessible bag. So it has like the essentials I use every single day. This here is my sleeping pad and my tent. Yeah, in this bag, my sleeping bag, I've got my solar panel. So this is actually what I've been using to for most of my power. Other than that, I got towel, hat, and bike lock, and that's pretty much what's in there. This little thing is tubes, some tools, and my toothbrush. So just like super simple stuff. I got some Band-Aids in there because I've gotten some sores on my heels. And then this is by far the best bag that I purchased. This one carries, I've got a 2-liter bladder here, and this is where I just keep refilling that when I get to gas stations. I've only got like 3 or 4 tools that I can do pretty much most of my repairs on the fly. Pretty much anything, as long as it's not like replacing components. Just adjustments are all done on like the 3 tools that I have.
Okay.
Flat tires and everything.
Have you had to do some repairs on this trip?
Yeah, it's at one point, so on the second day, I actually hit a guardrail. I was going up Washington Pass, and a big truck flew by me, and I was really tired and just blew me to the guardrail, and I actually bent up the front rack here, being an older bike, it's not designed for all of the new racks and stuff. So I actually have my fenders and my rack through the same eyelet, which is you're not supposed to do. So my rack getting messed up my fender a little bit. These two are really just, this is my wardrobe.
Okay.
I've got dirty clothes in one, and then I have my one other pair of biking clothes, biking shorts, and my flip-flops in there. And that's the only other pair of shoes I brought besides my actual biking shoes. This is the all-important snack bag. I just load this with whatever granola bar or whatever I can come across. I got some little energy packs, but this is all just fast food on the go. I eat pretty much every hour. I have to take in some calorie or I start to get hungry. So this is just like on the fly. Get really good at unwrapping granola bars as you bike. I've got GoPro mount here, and then my phone actually mounts here as well. So that's a night. This is a must for me, having that. I listen to audiobooks and music the whole time, and then I have my battery here where I'm able to actually charge my phone as I'm riding as well. So I haven't really had to worry about phone dying. It's my maps, my entertainment when I get
Everything,
bored.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty much what I need. I've got a camping stove that I've actually been thinking about cutting. That's the summary of what I'm carrying.
If someone is considering doing this, what would you say to them?
Don't overthink it, just go for it. 'Cause you don't need to put in 100 miles a day. I think you put in 60 miles a day every day, that's like, you'll do it in 2 months. So taking some break days here and there, you go a little over 2 months. So anybody can do 60 miles a day. It's actually fairly easy, because you got all day to do it.
Got it. Jordan, thank you so much for sharing your story.
For sure, it's been a pleasure.